I was standing in my lawyer's office, holding a pen over documents that would transfer 40% of my construction company to my daughter, Emily, when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Don't sign those papers. They're not who you think they are." I stared at the screen, my hand frozen mid-signature. Before I could process the message, my phone rang. The voice on the other end belonged to someone I hadn't spoken to in 18 years. What she told me in the next 5 minutes shattered everything I believed about my only child and the man she was about to marry. "I'm grateful you're here with me today. And before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below." The pen felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My attorney, Richard Chen, looked at me with concern. "Walter, is everything all right?" I forced a smile and set the pen down. "Actually, Richard, I need to step out for a moment. Something's come up." He nodded, though I could see the confusion in his eyes. These documents had been months in the making. Emily's 30th birthday was this Saturday, 5 days away, and I'd planned to surprise her with 2 gifts that would change her life. First, the deed to our family home in Highland Park, the house where she'd grown up, the house her mother and I had saved for 15 years to buy. Second, 40% ownership in Green Construction, the company I'd built from nothing over 4 decades. I walked out to the parking garage and sat in my truck, reading that text message over and over. "Don't sign those papers. They're not who you think they are." My thumb hovered over the call button. Whoever sent this knew I was at my lawyer's office. Knew I was signing papers today. That wasn't public information. I pressed call. It rang twice before a woman's voice answered. "Mr. Green, thank you for calling back." The voice was older now, weathered by time, but I recognized it instantly. My heart nearly stopped. "Denise? Denise Morrison?" "Yes, sir. It's been a long time." 18 years, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Denise Morrison had been my office manager back in 2008. Single mother of 3, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I'd given her a chance when no one else would, promoted her, helped her get her accounting degree. Then she disappeared one day without a word. I'd always wondered what happened to her. "Denise, where have you been? Why are you calling me now?" "Because I owe you my life, Mr. Green, and I can't let them destroy yours." My grip tightened on the phone. "Let who destroy what?" "Your daughter's fiancé, Kevin Hartwell. He's not who he says he is, and neither is his family." "What do you mean?" "His real name is Kevin Brennan. His aunt is Patricia Brennan." The name hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Patricia Brennan, my former business partner's wife. 18 years ago, I discovered that my partner, Douglas Brennan, had been embezzling from our company, skimming hundreds of thousands from client accounts, falsifying invoices, running a shadow operation that nearly destroyed everything I'd built. When I confronted him with the evidence, Patricia had been there. She'd screamed at me, threatened me, swore that I'd regret this. I'd reported Douglas to the authorities. He'd been convicted of fraud and died in prison 3 years later. Patricia had lost everything. Their house, their savings, their reputation. I hadn't heard from her since. Denise continued. "I work at a coffee shop downtown now. Been sober 12 years. Got my life together after you helped me. Last Tuesday, Patricia Brennan came in with Kevin and another woman. They sat in the corner booth for over an hour. I heard everything, Mr. Green. They were talking about you, about Emily, about documents and transfers and liquidating assets. They kept laughing about how easy it had been." My vision blurred. "What exactly did they say?" Patricia said, and I quote, "The old fool has no idea his precious daughter has been part of this from the beginning." Kevin laughed and said Emily had been, quote, "working on him for 2 years, softening him up for the handover." They mentioned Saturday. They mentioned making sure everything was signed before you figured it out. I couldn't breathe. "Emily? My Emily? The little girl who used to sit on my shoulders at job sites? The young woman who'd cried at her mother's funeral and held my hand through the darkest year of my life? That Emily? There has to be a mistake," I said. "Emily wouldn't. She loves me. She's my daughter." "I'm sorry, Mr. Green. I know this is hard to hear, but I sat 15 feet away for over an hour. I heard every word." Patricia talked about how Kevin had researched Emily for months before approaching her at that charity gala 2 years ago. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a plan. The call ended. I sat in my truck in the parking garage for what felt like hours, staring at the steering wheel. Memories flooded back. Emily at 6, gap-toothed and grinning, handing me a Father's Day card she'd made herself. Emily at 16, furious at me for missing her school play because of a construction deadline. Emily at 23, standing beside me at her mother's grave, promising she'd always be there for me. When did I lose her? I drove back to Richard's office and told him I needed more time to review the documents. He looked puzzled but agreed. As I walked out, I realized I had 5 days to uncover the truth. 5 days until Emily's birthday party. 5 days until I was supposed to hand over my life's work to the daughter I thought I knew. Thursday morning, I began my investigation. My home office became a war room. I pulled every document Emily or Kevin had ever asked me to sign. Estate planning papers from 6 months ago. Trust amendments from last fall. Authorization forms I'd barely glanced at because my daughter had handed them to me with that sweet smile and said, "Just routine stuff, Dad. Richard's been advising us on protecting the family assets." My hands trembled as I spread the papers across my desk. Power of attorney documents giving Emily authority over my financial decisions. Transfer authorizations moving properties into something called Highland Legacy Holdings, LLC. I grabbed my laptop and searched the Texas Secretary of State website. Highland Legacy Holdings, LLC, registered the 15th of March 2024. Managing members, Emily Rose Green and Kevin James Hartwell. My name appeared nowhere. I kept digging. A preliminary sales agreement between Highland Legacy Holdings and a company called Meridian Capital Partners. Sale price for all green construction assets and properties, $12 million. I knew those assets were worth at least $30 million. They were selling my legacy for 40 cents on the dollar. My phone rang. Richard Chen's name flashed on the screen. "Walter, I've been looking over those documents more carefully. Something doesn't add up. The trust language. It's unusual. I think you should have an independent attorney review these before you sign anything." "Thank you, Richard. I think you're right." I hung up and made another call. James Whitmore, private investigator. I'd used him for background checks on subcontractors, due diligence on business deals. Now I needed him to investigate my own daughter. "James, it's Walter Green. I need deep background on 2 people, Kevin Hartwell and Patricia Brennan. I need it fast." "How fast?" "Before Saturday. I'll see what I can find." Friday evening, James called back. His voice was grim. "Walter, this is worse than you thought. Kevin Hartwell legally changed his name in 2019. His birth name is Kevin Douglas Brennan. Patricia Brennan is his aunt. His father was Douglas Brennan. The man I sent to prison, the man who died there, Kevin's father," James continued. "After Douglas died, Patricia raised Kevin. She sold everything she had left to put him through law school. He graduated, passed the bar, but he's never practiced at a legitimate firm. He's been working with his aunt on quote-unquote estate planning services for wealthy clients. There have been complaints, but nothing that's stuck. And here's the part that'll keep you up at night. I found a photograph from June 2022, the Dallas Charity Foundation Gala. Kevin is in the background, watching Emily across the room. She's talking to a group of people, completely unaware. This was taken 3 hours before they officially met. He researched her, positioned himself. The introduction that night wasn't a coincidence. I felt sick. What about Emily? Is she a victim or a participant? That's the question I can't answer definitively, but I did find something. Emily has $78,000 in credit card debt. Kevin has over $100,000 in personal loans. His aunt Patricia filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago, but has been living in a condo she shouldn't be able to afford. They're all drowning financially, Walter, and your company is their lifeboat. I stared at the family photograph on my desk. Emily at her college graduation, arm around my shoulder, both of us beaming. Her mother had taken that picture. It was one of the last photos before Helen got sick. When did my little girl become this person? Or had she always been someone I didn't really know? Saturday morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to Emily's apartment while she and Kevin were at brunch. I still had a key from when she'd asked me to water her plants during a trip last year. The apartment was expensive, far more expensive than her job at the nonprofit should allow. Kevin's suits in the closet, designer labels I recognized from magazine ads. In the home office, I found a folder labeled Highland Legacy, Inside were copies of every document I'd signed, along with a timeline. Phase 1, Establish Trust, August 2022 to March 2023. Phase 2, Integration, April 2023 to December 2023. Phase 3, Asset Transfer, January 2024 to present. Phase 4, Liquidation, post-Saturday. At the bottom of the folder was a handwritten note in Emily's writing. Dad's getting suspicious. Need to accelerate the timeline. Kevin says his aunt has a buyer ready. We just need him to sign on Saturday, and it's done. I photographed everything and left. Sunday evening, Emily called to confirm dinner at my house. Family dinner, she said cheerfully. Kevin and I want to go over some last-minute details for the party. I played my role perfectly. Of course, sweetheart. I'll make your mother's pot roast, just like old times. I spent the afternoon preparing two things, dinner and a recording device. They arrived at 6, all smiles and wine and hugs. Kevin shook my hand with that firm, confident grip. Walter, thank you for everything you've done for Emily. For us, I forced warmth into my voice. You're going to be family, Kevin. That's what family does. Over dinner, they steered the conversation toward the party. Emily leaned forward, eyes bright. Dad, I know this is a big weekend for you. Handing over part of the company, transferring the house. I just want you to know how much it means to me. I nodded, chewing slowly. It's what your mother would have wanted. To see you settled, secure. Kevin jumped in. Have you thought about what comes next for you? Maybe traveling? You've worked so hard for so long. You deserve to relax. Let the younger generation handle the stress. Every word was a probe, testing my willingness to step back. I excused myself to use the bathroom and placed my phone, voice recorder running, on the bookshelf near the dining room. Through the app, I heard everything. Kevin's voice, low and urgent. Does he suspect anything? Emily's response, casual and cold. He signed everything without reading. You know how he is. Trusts family completely. My aunt says the Meridian deal is locked in. Once Saturday's done, we move fast. He'll be spending his golden years in some retirement community while we rebuild everything his generation destroyed. Kevin laughed, including my father's life. The old man has no idea what's coming. I stood in the bathroom, hands braced against the sink, listening to my daughter laugh about destroying me. The daughter I'd coached through math homework, the daughter I'd walked down the aisle at her first dance recital, the daughter I'd held when she cried at her mother's funeral. She was laughing about putting me in a retirement home while she stole my life's work. I splashed cold water on my face and returned with a smile. The rest of dinner was torture. They discussed party details, guest lists, the catering menu, while I nodded and agreed and pretended I didn't know they were planning my destruction. At 9, they left. Emily hugged me tight at the door. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. The words tasted like ash. Monday morning, I sat across from Richard Chen and a new attorney, Sandra Williams, a former federal prosecutor who specialized in fraud cases. I played them the recording. When it ended, Richard looked pale. Sandra's expression was steel. This is criminal conspiracy, she said. Fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse. The fact that his father was your former partner adds a revenge element that prosecutors will love. She made notes. Here's what we do. First, we challenge every document on grounds of fraudulent inducement. You were deceived by people you trusted. Second, we file a complaint with the state bar against Kevin Brennan, using his real name. Third, I have contacts at the FBI's white-collar crime division. The interstate wire transfers constitute federal fraud. Fourth, we get an emergency injunction freezing Highland Legacy Holdings. Fifth, you execute a new will immediately. Everything goes to a charity of your choice. Emily gets nothing. Kevin gets nothing. Patricia gets nothing. I nodded slowly. And Saturday? Sandra leaned forward. That's your call, Walter. We can handle this quietly through legal channels, or you can do it publicly. Let everyone see what they tried to do. I thought about Douglas Brennan's face when I'd confronted him 18 years ago. The rage, the threats, the promise that I'd regret exposing him. His widow and son had spent nearly 2 decades planning their revenge. They'd turned my daughter against me. They'd made her a willing participant in my destruction. I want everyone to know, I said. I want them to see exactly who Kevin Brennan really is. And I want Emily to explain to 200 guests why she helped them. The week passed in a blur of legal preparations. Tuesday, I met with FBI agents who took the case immediately. Wednesday, I signed my new will, leaving my entire estate to the Dallas Community Foundation. Thursday, Sandra filed the ethics complaint against Kevin. Friday, a judge approved the emergency injunction. Highland Legacy Holdings was frozen, and through it all, I played my part. Text messages with Emily about party decorations. Phone calls with Kevin about the transfer ceremony. I pretended to be the oblivious father, the trusting patriarch, the easy mark. Saturday arrived gray and cold. Emily's 30th birthday party was scheduled for 6 at the Dallas Country Club. 200 guests, colleagues, friends, family members who had no idea what they were about to witness. I dressed carefully. My best navy suit, the one Helen had picked out for me years ago. From my safe, I retrieved her engagement ring. I'd kept it since she died, unable to part with it. I slipped it into my pocket as a reminder of what family should mean. I arrived at 5:30. The venue was elegant. White tablecloths, flowers everywhere, a string quartet playing softly. Emily found me immediately, radiant in a green dress that matched her eyes, her mother's eyes. "Daddy, you came early. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect, sweetheart." I hugged her, smelled her familiar perfume, and wondered how we'd ended up here. Kevin approached with his usual confident smile. "Walter, big night. Ready to make it official?" "I'm ready," I said. "More than you know." The guests arrived. Business associates, friends, neighbors, people who'd known our family for decades. They congratulated Emily, shook Kevin's hand, clapped me on the shoulder. Such a generous father. Emily's so lucky. Patricia Brennan was there too, introduced as Kevin's aunt from Houston. We shook hands. She had the same cold eyes I remembered from 18 years ago. "Mr. Green," she said smoothly. "It's been a long time." "Too long," I replied. Dinner was served at 7. I sat at the head table with Emily and Kevin, eating food I couldn't taste, smiling at jokes I couldn't hear, counting down the minutes. At 8:15, Emily stood and clinked her glass. "Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we continue, my father has a few words." She beamed at me. "Dad?" I rose slowly, walked to the microphone at the front of the room. 200 faces looked up at me expectantly. Emily was glowing. Kevin was grinning. Patricia sat near the back, smug satisfaction in her expression. They thought they'd won. I cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming tonight. As Emily said, this is a special occasion. But before we celebrate, I need to talk about something important. Trust, family, and betrayal." Emily's smile flickered. Kevin's grin faltered. I pulled out my phone. 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, ready to sign papers transferring 40% of my company and my family home to my daughter. Then I received a warning from someone I hadn't heard from in 18 years. A woman I'd helped once, who decided to help me when it mattered most. I held up the phone. "This is a recording from last Sunday night at what I thought was a family dinner." I pressed play. Kevin's voice filled the room. "Does he suspect anything?" Emily's voice answered. "He signed everything without reading. My aunt says the Meridian deal is locked in. Once Saturday's done, we move fast. He'll be spending his golden years in some retirement community." Kevin again, laughing. "The old man has no idea what's coming." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily's face went white. Kevin stood up abruptly. I held up documents. "For those who want details, here's what they planned. Power of attorney documents I signed 6 months ago, thinking I was helping with estate planning. Property transfers to a company called Highland Legacy Holdings, LLC. I didn't know about this company. Emily and Kevin are the sole owners. My name appears nowhere." I held up another document. A sales agreement between Highland Legacy Holdings and Meridian Capital Partners. Sale price, $12 million. Actual value of those assets, $30 million. They were going to sell my life's work for 40 cents on the dollar. The room was silent except for shocked whispers. "But here's what makes this personal." I turned toward Kevin. Kevin Hartwell isn't his real name. His birth name is Kevin Douglas Brennan. His father was Douglas Brennan, my former business partner, whom I reported for embezzlement 18 years ago. Douglas died in prison. Kevin's aunt, Patricia Brennan, raised him, and for 18 years, they've been planning their revenge. I pointed to Patricia, who was already moving toward the exit. That woman in the back is Patricia Brennan. She's been orchestrating this from the beginning. Kevin didn't meet Emily by accident at a charity gala 2 years ago. He researched her, targeted her, positioned himself to destroy me through my own daughter. I looked at Emily. For months, I hoped you were just a victim, that Kevin had manipulated you. But that recording proves otherwise. You knew about the forged documents. You laughed about putting your father in a retirement home. You called my company something you'd rebuild after destroying me. Tears streamed down Emily's face. Dad, please, let me explain. I signaled toward the door. Two men in suits stepped forward. Patricia Brennan, Kevin Brennan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and wire fraud. Patricia screamed something as officers handcuffed her. Kevin tried to run, but didn't make it 3 steps. Emily collapsed into her chair, sobbing. I looked at my daughter one last time. You were my everything, Emily. After your mother died, you were all I had. I would have given you anything, everything, freely. All you had to do was ask. All you had to do was love me back. I walked out of the country club into the cold December night. Behind me, 200 guests erupted in chaos. My daughter was being questioned by police. The man she'd planned to marry was in handcuffs, and I was alone. I drove to my house. The house Helen and I had saved 15 years to buy. The house where Emily took her first steps, lost her first tooth, cried over her first heartbreak. I sat in the living room in the dark, surrounded by photographs of a family that no longer existed. My phone buzzed. A text from Denise Morrison. Heard what happened. I'm sorry it came to this. I typed back. Thank you for warning me. You saved my life, she replied. You saved mine first. 18 years ago. I never forgot. I thought about that. 18 years ago, I'd given a struggling single mother a chance, helped her get back on her feet. I'd never expected anything in return. But she'd remembered. She'd been watching over me without my knowledge. And when it mattered most, she'd stepped forward. Meanwhile, my own daughter, the child I'd raised, the girl I'd sacrificed everything for, had been plotting my destruction. The next morning, I visited Helen's grave. The headstone was simple. Just her name and the words beloved wife and mother. I sat on the cold ground and talked to her the way I had every week since she died. They arrested Emily, I told her. She's out on bail, but she's facing charges. Kevin and Patricia are still in custody. The company is safe. The house is safe. I won. The word felt hollow. I won, Helen. So why do I feel like I lost everything? I pulled out her engagement ring and held it in my palm. I bought this for you 43 years ago. I was 22 years old, working 2 jobs, saving every penny. You cried when I proposed. You said yes before I even finished asking. I looked at the ring, then at the gravestone. She was supposed to be our legacy, our proof that we'd done something right. What happened, Helen? Where did we go wrong? The wind picked up, cold and sharp. I had no answers, just questions that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Wednesday, Emily called. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Dad, please. Can we talk? I'm listening. I never wanted it to go this far. Kevin, he promised we'd take care of you, that you'd be comfortable, that we'd just be taking over a little early. I didn't know about his father. I didn't know about Patricia's plan. I just thought, you just thought what? That stealing from your father was acceptable as long as it was done politely? Silence on the other end. Emily, I loved you more than anything in this world. When your mother got sick, I worked 18-hour days to pay for experimental treatments. When she died, I fell apart, but I held it together for you. Every decision I've made for the past 30 years was about giving you a better life. I know, Dad. Then why? Her voice broke. Because you were never there. Because Mom raised me alone while you built your empire. Because every school play, every recital, every birthday, you had an excuse. I grew up watching you love your company more than you loved us. The words cut deep because they were partly true. Helen had said similar things over the years, more gently, with more grace, but the same underlying message. Walter, You work too hard. Walter, Emily needs you. Walter, what's the point of building something if you're never home to enjoy it? I wasn't perfect, I said quietly. I know that. But I never stopped loving you. Everything I built was for you and your mother. And you tried to steal it. You tried to destroy me. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I hung up. Friday afternoon, I signed the final paperwork at Richard Chen's office. My new will left everything to the Dallas Community Foundation, specifically to fund programs for struggling single mothers trying to better themselves. Denise Morrison's face flashed through my mind. Patricia and Kevin's trial dates were set. They'd likely spend years in prison. Emily's case was more complicated. She was cooperating with prosecutors, which might reduce her sentence, but she'd still face consequences. I walked out of Richard's office into the pale winter sunlight. 42 years ago, I'd arrived in Dallas with nothing but a pickup truck and a dream. I'd built a company worth $30 million. I'd married the love of my life. I'd raised a daughter. Now Helen was gone. My company would go to charity, and my daughter was awaiting trial for trying to destroy me. Some victories cost more than they're worth. So that's my story. Standing in that empty family home, I realized something I wish I'd understood decades ago. You can build all the empires you want, accumulate all the wealth in the world, but if you don't build relationships with the people you love, you end up with nothing but expensive loneliness. Don't be like me. Don't let your work become your excuse for absence. Don't assume your family knows you love them just because you provide for them. Say the words, be present, make the memories. I protected my legacy from thieves, but I failed to protect my relationship with my daughter long before Kevin Brennan ever entered the picture. The cracks were already there. He just knew where to apply pressure. Some nights, I wonder what would have happened if I'd talked to Emily differently. If I'd apologized for all those missed moments instead of just throwing money at the problem. Would she still have turned against me? I don't know. I'll never know. God gave me a warning through Denise Morrison. But maybe that warning wasn't just about stopping the theft. Maybe it was a chance to see the damage I'd already caused, the distance I'd already created, the daughter I'd already lost without realizing it. I chose justice over mercy. I chose protection over reconciliation. Every legal expert would tell you I made the right call. Then why do I eat dinner alone every night? Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it made you pause, if it made you think about the people you love and the time you're not spending with them, then it was worth telling. And before I go, let me leave you with this question. 10 years from now, what will you regret more? The boundaries you didn't set or the bridges you burned? I'm still figuring out my answer. Thank you for watching this video. Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly value every story and every voice. Don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Uncle Arthur and share this video with your family and friends.